Good. Good evening, everyone. We could start with a moment of silent prayer, please. Thank you. Stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Swager?
Here.
Mrs. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Benton?
Here.
Mrs. Boer?
Here.
Mrs. Thomas?
Here.
Reading of the notice, sir.
This is a public meeting of the Board of Education for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There's a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. Each statement made by a participant shall be limited to 3 minutes. Upon request of the superintendent, the district shall make reasonable accommodation for a person with a disability to be able to participate in this activity. Recording shall be made of each meeting of the board as administrative aid and shall be preserved as public documents of the board.
Thank you. Any additions or deletions to the agenda?
I have one small change to the agenda, and that's under consent, item H, volunteers. Wanted to add Mike Triplett as a high school softball coach for volunteers. It just came in late. I thought rather than wait for another month, we should try to test it. Other than that, I don't have anything.
Is that high school softball or just
Yes.
softball? Okay.
All right, can I get a motion to adopt?
Did we need to
I'll make the motion.
item I just spoke to you about?
No. Is it?
Is that part of the consent?
That's what I could look at. I thought it was more of a note than a consent.
We wanted to add one thing to the executive session. I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't think there's an item to vote on though, right? I think it's just a discussion.
Okay.
It's personnel. When we go into executive session, we want to add personnel.
Oh, okay. So I'll add that under as a third area there for it. We have two already.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. I don't think there's anything on actual agenda for voting on it.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. If I can get a motion to adopt,
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
second. Call the roll.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Boer?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes. Moving on to public remarks. We have one person, Monica Kerner. I appreciate it. Thank you, Monica. And for those that don't know, we address the uniform issue each year, so it has a group that meets. It'll be, I don't know what time, toward the end of the year, before we do the handbook each year. They meet and discuss. It's been modified several times. I mean, I don't know how far people go back, but they've removed some items, added some items, removed the belt requirement. There's been a bunch of revisions to that. So we'll keep Dr. Wagner, just keep us updated as that comes on, and you can get with Monica on that. Thank you. I don't have anyone else signed up for public comment. Yeah, I think I want you. Recognitions.
So first, we have something we added to the agenda from the original draft, but it's exciting. So we want to recognize our 7th and 8th grade LCL volleyball champions. I think Mr. Gant's going to talk about it in just a second here, but a lot to celebrate. Mr. Gant says it best when we didn't know what to expect with seventh grade, and I believe they went 15-3. That's the record. And then our 8th grade girls went undefeated. So Mr. Grant is going to fill in the details for us, and certainly we should be celebrating this tremendous volleyball program.
Stand. Thank you, ladies. Nora Boston, Sophia Cook, Kyla Cox, Reese Ferris, Allison Groves, Addison Kelly, Sadie Sauer, and I apologize if I mispronounce anyone, Chloe Scarberry, Isabella Swartz. This is our 8th grade team, coached by Coach Sarah Kelly. Coach, if you could stand too. And for our 7th grade team, Vivian Anderson, Elizabeth Britton, Peyton Carter, Kylie Furr, Audrey Harper, Brianne Kraus, Sasha Kuhn, Olivia Likens, Evan Lyons, Maria Smith, and head coach Amanda Scarberry. And we also want to recognize our volunteer coach, Susan Harper. So I just want to talk to you briefly about their seasons. For 8th grade, after winning a 2023 LCL championship, they definitely felt some pressure to repeat and come back and be successful. However, they improved their record from 21-2 the following year to this year going 22-0. These girls have been resilient, determined, yet kind and amazing teammates, and they build each other up and truly play together as a team. And the coaches could not be more proud of who they are on and off the court. As for 8th grade, it has been an incredible, 7th grade. It has been an incredible journey, a growth of improvement for our 7th grade Johnnies. Unlike the 8th graders, many came into the season with lofty expectations, and nobody really knew what to expect from the 7th grade team. They were transitioning from recreational volleyball to competitive school volleyball, which is a huge difference. And right out the gate, the 7th graders leaned into that challenge. All of our 7th grade Johnnies were exceptional teammates and representatives of their school and community this season, and that should make us all proud as champions. I would like to also add to the 8th graders, we're excited to get you in the high school program next year. We look forward to having you. Thank you all.
Excellent. Congratulations on 2 great seasons there. Always fun to watch. I went to a couple of matches. They're intense. They're fun, but much more intense than I had imagined. So I was pleasantly surprised. So congratulations. Fantastic seasons for both of 7th and 8th grade.
I think, Mr. McDonald, you want to get pictures of each of the teams?
Yeah, they've done this. They're professionals at this.
They've seen some team photos before.
That's right.
Good job. I put a red shirt and a number, but no one offered.
So we're continuing with our school board meeting. You're certainly welcome to stay, but if you want to leave, now would be the time to leave. And we're probably going to be.
Goodbye, everyone.
Congratulations.
We're not that much fun.
Congratulations.
No.
Job well done.
Now it's time to leave.
It looks like some of them might have practice. Gosh, everybody left.
I know.
Mark,
How
how are
cool
you?
is this?
No.
So much
Good.
fun.
People.
Wow.
Maybe we should have talked about this.
Now it's empty.
It's a little empty.
Yeah.
It sure did. And thanks to the coaches as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And to the parents. Parents are driving
Oh,
the
yeah.
seventh and eighth
Yeah,
graders.
absolutely.
Most definitely.
I was thinking 22 games. That's a lot.
That is a
It
lot.
is a lot.
Practices,
It is a lot.
summer camp.
Yeah. So next we're ready for the next presentation. If that's okay.
Yep.
So we've asked our transportation department to come up, and I know they have a PowerPoint as well too. So as a reminder, we use community bus service. So it's okay. I got it. Community bus service has a PowerPoint presentation. They are a vendor for us, but do a nice job and certainly a lot to celebrate this year. So, Julian, are you leading the presentation? Okay. We'll ask you to come up to the mic, please.
Well, good evening. My name is Julian Thomas with Community Bus Services. Thank you for inviting us to present tonight. We've done a lot of work in the last 18 months that we'd like to explain to you guys, and we're very excited to be here. Before we get started, I'd like to just give a brief introduction of who we are. It's been a long time. Terry has told me it's been a long time since we've addressed the board directly, and we'd like to just give you an update on who your contractor is. So we're a family-owned contractor. I'm the third generation of my family that's in the leadership of this business. Terry's dad, my grandpa, James Thomas, started in 1933, transporting kids during the Great Depression when he was 18. And since then, we've grown across the state of Ohio. We're currently we service 28 school districts, both in a limited and a full service capacity. We have 9 locations, and we've been with Johnstown-Monroe for 10 years. 2014 is when we came into the district. So the 2 topics we're going to discuss tonight are investments that we've made in the last 18 months and technology. Last December, we purchased 10 new school buses for the Johnstown fleet, and we thought it was a good opportunity to upgrade a lot of our technologies that we're going to be discussing tonight. First is our camera system, Gatekeeper, and this is a full comprehensive camera system for a school bus. 2 features that I'd like to highlight tonight are the wireless accessibility of the videos to be downloaded. So in the past, we used to have to go out to the bus, pull the hard drive off the bus, bring it in. It was a very cumbersome process that delayed us communicating footage to, to the parties that are involved in an incident. And now that's a lot more streamlined. The other feature that I'd like to discuss tonight is, which you'll see in the bottom tile there, the external cameras. They face both forward and rear, and they're designed to catch motorists who are illegally passing through the extended stop line. Last February, February is National Love the School Bus Month across the country, we did a Channel 10 special, and they came to the high school. I'm sure most of you saw that. They interviewed Dr. Wagner and Terry, and the Department of Public Safety was doing a statewide campaign on awareness of illegal passing of stop arms, and they asked us to be their featured, bus and camera system that they featured in that campaign. So I thought it was worthwhile to show you guys tonight. So this is a 1-minute video from the state of Ohio on school bus safety. So as you can see, that's meant to be an educational piece that they spread throughout the state, making motorists aware of how to behave when they see the yellow, amber warning lights come on, telling you that the bus is about to stop, and then when the red lights come on, what the expectations are. Because that is a huge problem across the state. These external cameras are becoming more mainstream, but there are still, at this point, very few districts across the state that actually implement. Next, onboard technology I'd like to discuss is Zonar. Zonar is really the core of all of our data and things like GPS, speed, maintenance, idling time, a lot of things that feed into other technology that we have implemented over the last year or two, such as Stop Finder that we'll get to in a minute. The other thing I wanted to highlight tonight was our electronic vehicle inspection reports. As you'll see in the top right of your screen, there's an onboard Samsung tablet that drivers utilize on a daily basis to do their pre and post trip inspections. Those tags that you see up there are little RFID tags. They're placed throughout the vehicle. This ensures that the driver physically has to walk around the bus. We have a company policy that we have a driver do a pre-trip and a post-trip after each AM if they have a midday and PM route. Whereas the state of Ohio, actually, their requirement is only once in a 24-hour period. We've learned that it's safer and it's worthwhile to have the driver do that inspection multiple times. One of the integrations that Zonar has is with Stop Finder, which has become our best friend here in Johnstown. We're really happy with our rollout. Stop Finder is a parent app available on all Apple and iOS and Android platforms. It allows the parent to track the school bus and allows for the communication of delays and stop time changes directly to parents. One of the two major features I want to highlight on Stop Finder are that it integrates with the student information system, which here is PowerSchool, and it also integrates with the routing software TransFinder. So on the student information side, makes it a lot, it allows the driver, the parent to nobody can, I'm sorry, I lost my words there. Not anybody can track any bus. And that's a very important thing for student, security. On the routing software side, you have the on the routing software side, the planned stop changes are communicated directly through the app, which is very, the routing software change. I'm sorry. It allows the times that changes in the routes to be effectively communicated directly to the parents. And then also, you have extremely high participation, whereas you have 521 students that have an active subscription in the district out of 863 routing students. Here's a quick video on the stop.
You can also set Alexa and Stop Finder will let you know when the bus is getting close. With Stop Finder, you'll have direct two-way communication with your school's transportation department.
So that little geo alert feature is something that I've thought about a lot. When I was a kid, my mom would stick her head out the window, and when the bus was about to approach our house, we'd have to go down a cul-de-sac. And this is the modern 2024 version of that. You know, you just set up a little, you can draw a circle on right in the app, and when the bus hits that circle, that geographic location, that's the integration with Sonar, and it will send an alert directly to the parents. Real quick, I'd like to give an update on the governor's report on school bus safety. So this was as a result of, this was a report that was created as a result of the fatal school bus accident in Clark County last August. That was in Springfield, Ohio. Governor DeWine appointed a school bus safety working group to review school bus safety policy in Ohio. And that school bus safety working group summarized their conclusions in a list of 17 recommendations to the school districts in Ohio. These are the 17 recommendations that that the governor's working group came up with. I won't go through each one of them, but there are, they range on a wide range of topics, from driver wellness and well-being, increased support from the districts and contractors. You also have increased collaboration between the Ohio Department of Public Safety and the Ohio State Highway Patrol, and cross-department cooperation. That was one of their big things, as well as increased in-service training hours for school bus drivers in general. And I believe that Community Bus, we're glad to report that we have actually far surpassed a lot of the requirements set by the state of Ohio. But we've definitely read through this and are implementing, a lot of the items. Concluding this, I wanted to explain one of our largest challenges, which is staffing. And I'm sure that's not a surprise to a lot of you. You've seen on the news, there is a massive national school bus driver shortage, and we are, we've been doing quite a good job at navigating it. So one of the largest, that's a problem that faces all school districts across the country. And a statistic that I like to communicate is that the average daily call-off rate in the United States for school bus drivers is 18%. So that means that, on a daily basis, we have to have 18% more drivers than we need to just break even. And that still is putting a very large stress on our office staff. We actually like to aim for about 30%, because you have things like field trips and other non-route service that we provide that we have to factor in when we're recruiting. So our approach to the national school bus driver shortage has really been adopting a 24/7, 365 mindset. We never have enough drivers, even when on paper we do. We believe that this is actually an advantage of using a third party. We believe that contractors are uniquely positioned to navigate the national school bus driver shortage, and that's for two main reasons. One of those reasons is the breadth of experience that we have. We have operations in inner cities. We have operations in rural communities like Johnstown, and in several in suburban communities. We've seen all types of different scenarios, what works recruiting-wise, what doesn't work recruiting-wise. And for instance, in Johnstown, a more rural community, we've learned that online recruiting, Indeed, and other digital sources of recruiting are actually less impactful than in inner city areas. And for here, traditional yard signs and things like that tend to do the job better. We also have been able to supplement driver shortages from other locations. So we have a large operation down in Groveport, Ohio, about 120 employees at that facility. We've been able to send drivers up here if need be. We've also, we've sent drivers from other locations before we had Groveport. We'd send them to Cleveland, they'd stay in hotels. So we believe that is actually one of the strengths of contracting out school bus service. And we're glad that we haven't had any significant impacts on school due to transportation. And it's actually, the Central Ohio is getting hit particularly hard. And I know several, districts around us including Columbus City, have been severely impacted. I know I went a little too fast for that, but I did want to just say thank you again for inviting us here tonight and the partnership we've had for years and the opportunity to continue serving.
Do you want to introduce anyone from your team here?
Yep. So first we have Terry Thomas. We have Terry is the CEO of Community Bus and the owner. We have Liz Smith next to Terry. Liz is she oversees a lot of our dispatch operations, as well as very involved in recruiting and writing up a lot of our procedures on how we do things. Then we have Kelly Blessing, or as my dad calls her, Kelly the Blessing, and she is our longtime Johnstown school bus driver, who in the last 12 months has stepped into the office, is now our supervisor. And you have Jill Embry. Jill, who most of you probably know, Jill is our longtime facility manager here in Johnstown. Jill is still working here almost on a daily basis, but we have moved her into a role where she's overseeing safety and training for our southern region, so Central Ohio and Southwestern Ohio. So this is the team, and thank you very much for your time. Do you have any questions for tonight?
Or do you have any questions?
I do. I always have questions. Well, one, thanks. This year has gone really well, comparatively from last year. It started out a little tougher last year. This year, I think the opt-in was very impactful. So that helped get everything straightened around. So I appreciate moving to that. Two, I'd like to see Johnstown-Monroe on our buses, the actual placards. I've seen several that still don't have our school emblem on the, school name on those. So I'd like to get to those. Stop Finder. This is the second year for Stop Finder, or third, or
We rolled it out last year,
okay.
Not at the beginning of the year. This will be the first full school year. Yeah, we
Yeah.
haven't had it. That has not been implemented for 12 months yet.
Okay. I used it last year. That's why I was wondering. I wasn't sure how long we had it. When do you add stops and remove those? Like, what's the frequency? You just set it at the beginning of the year and then it's set? Because I experienced where my son got his driver's license, so he rode the bus for the first half of the year, second half of the year he's driving. So I just opted back out of Stop Finder, but I don't know, do you guys update that throughout?
If you opted out of Stop Finder, so if your child was routed at the beginning of the year, if your child, unless you proactively reached out to us and told us you are no longer routing the bus, he is likely still routed and still in Stop Finder. And we like to look at the routes every few months just for an efficiency standpoint to see if we need to rebalance routes. If one route seems to have very high ridership and it's causing a longer route, longer ride time for the students, we'll then take a look at it and rebalance. But in your situation, Kelly would know on a specific basis, but your child is likely still routed.
Well, he's not, because I contacted you guys, but that's I'm involved. But I guess I say this for other parents out there though, because they stay and remain efficient as busing goes. If you're not going to utilize the service anymore as your kids transition out, we would like you to contact and make sure you notify us. That way the bus isn't going by your house every day wondering if the child may stand out front or not,
Right. And our drivers do, if a child hasn't rode in a long time, we make note of that. And
Oh, I had Mr. Wayne. He knew everything.
oh,
So,
yeah. He does know everything.
yes. So I appreciate that. And Terry clearly did not train you well, Julian, because you were supposed to bring Sunrise Pizza today. I am very disappointed, but I'll get over it. No. All right. Anyone else have any other questions?
No, I was just going to say thank you. As a parent with 3 children in the district, I will tell you Stop Finder is incredible. I really appreciate knowing, especially as the weather's getting colder, that if it's running a couple minutes late, I have a long driveway. Ann has a long driveway, so we know if we don't have to go out early or on time and get those notices. We love those. So those have been really wonderful this year.
Thank you very much.
We struggled last year, as you all know. We had a really, really terrible start to the grade. And went in and I met with Dr. Phil and Eric and then eventually met Craig. And that is the linchpin that brought us out. Sure, we're capable of doing all this wonderful stuff we do it everywhere, but I can tell you that there are many districts that don't provide us with what. So Dr. Phil gave us Derek, and Derek worked. And Derek was engaged, and he was tough on us, and I begged him to be tough on us. And that's what got us to our success, because the opt-in was a great idea, but doing it, as you, like a lot of other projects, doing it is, he held our little feet to the fire, and we had deadlines over the summer, and we struggled meeting those deadlines. And like Julian mentioned, we're a much larger operation. This is a small, and I get criticized. I mean, you can't run 12 buses in Johnstown. I'm going, it's tough. And just forget about the Intel plant and all the construction. This is a community that demands good bus service. And, you know, we are a company that wants to deliver. All that goodwill and all that good effort, it's hard. But with your team, well, that's why we're successful. I just want to make sure that's very clear, because that was a lot of work on your part too. And Felicia too. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a question on the 521 students out of 863 routed. Is that taking into account if they're at the same residence, or is that just
So there are 863 total routed students.
okay?
520 of those are tied to an active subscription. So one parent can have 4 students, and most of those are group stops on our regular ed routes. So
we still have a little bit of work to do.
oh yeah,
We've got about 40% that still need to get
Yep.
opt in.
and actually TransFinder, according to they typically see 30% is their number that of parents who will actually engage with the system. And actually, we've implemented Stop Finder at one other location in Northeast Ohio, and it took a lot longer to get to 40% there, and it's been a few years now, than it did here. We actually think that over time, as Stop Finder becomes a normal part of the annual transportation process for parents, that number will increase.
I wish I had Stop Finder, but mine have graduated now. And the other thing that I'm very happy about was the external cameras. And I think I wrote Derek a message. I'm sure he relayed that, but I live at the furthest point of the county and also the furthest point of the school district. So it's very difficult to get a state highway patrolman out there on that road at that time because they're shift changing. And we worked with the Plus Transportation Department quite a bit on that. So I'm so happy to see these cameras. So happy, because they run that quite a bit, but they don't now, I bet.
No,
I bet they don't.
Well, add on that, because of the wonderful work Craig did on our local bus and getting Channel 10 to do what they did, that's how the Ohio Department of Public Safety, their Office of Traffic Safety, they went crazy over that and created. That's why Julian showed you the stop means stop. That happened right on the heels of Love the Bus. And they wanted that bus, they wanted what they saw, and they wanted to tell the people of the state of Ohio on the heels of the governor's report that people blow through those stop signs every day. And that's our little weapon. And I don't know if any other districts in the state, I don't know if anybody else does. You guys know of any other districts in the state? There's one other district that has the external cameras, and that's what we have to do.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for keeping our kids safe.
And Julian, just one thing that Mr. Swager said, I believe that Derek's talked to you. We're looking to get Johnstown put the names on the buses. My understanding is the inquiries because you just replenished the fleet and you have to catch up on that.
Yep.
Also been told by Derek it's not as easy as we think. It's not like you just rivet it on there and you have so many buses and you need to have some swaps available or substitute buses. So, but my understanding is that accurate that you're working on?
That is accurate. We plan to have the whole fleet saying Johnstown-Monroe. And now that it's a new fleet, these buses are going to be servicing Johnstown for a long time. And we're going to make that a permanent change.
Excellent. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight. Appreciate it.
Do you have any questions about transportation?
It's great.
Yep, sounds great.
I will go through most of the highlights on the report card, and then Mrs. Seibel might help a little bit too. PowerPoint, right? Okay, the first slide is just there's overall ratings provided. There's 5 components, and of the 5 components, they rest on achievement, progress, gap closing, graduation, early literacy. On college, career, workforce, military readiness, it's only a report, but it will be measured in next year's report card. So that is what ours looks like in the aggregate, and we'll go through and disaggregate some of this. Generally, I would tell you the report card's very similar to what it was last year in an overall setting. So. Hard to see this, I know, but we want to be able to show you. What you're looking at is what's called our performance index, and it represents from 2020 all the way through this last year, which will be 2024. The last 2 years, very similar progress that we have. So we have 96 last year, 95, I believe is the number. So we had a significant bump last year and about level again this year. Performance index, that's for our school district. One of the things I get questions about often is how do we rank? And in the state of Ohio, I believe there's 608 school districts. We pulled this right off of the state data. So what it shows is where we rank, and we pulled the county data. So of that 608 school districts, you can see where Granville is in number 1 position, and we come in at number 2 at 135. If you look to the left and to the right of that second column, it gives you some other metrics there. You can see, and this is just pulling over from the previous slide, so you can see we had 95.2 last year, 96 the year before, and 92.2 in the 21-22 school year. And then all the school districts for Licking County are represented there. Again, we just pulled this right out of the state data. Any questions before we change that slide? One of the things we do then is we look at overall rankings for the individual schools, and sometimes the way that the schools are rated differs. Like for example, when you look at the elementary, we're going to have an early literacy score. Obviously, that's not going to be in some of the other schools. So when you look at the overall ranking for the elementary, we had 4.5 stars. You can see we did well in achievement. You're not going to see a lot of progress because that's also what you often hear value added with that. And that generally is considering the student gets themselves. You have gap closing, graduation there, and early literacy is there. One of the questions we get a lot of times is what is the difference between progress, value added, and gap closing? The difference with progress, what I call value added, is that's looking at the individual student compared to themselves generally. So did they make a year's worth of growth? Did they exceed more than a year's worth of growth? And you're not going to see that here, but that metric will pull through in the other ones. The gap closing, what that does is that identifies a group of students and it looks at how well that group is doing. So for example, we have economically disadvantaged students. You could have students who are English language learners. So different subgroups, and that's kind of how you parse out those 2 groups, or those 2 metrics, I should say. Any questions about the elementary? Go to the next one. We have the intermediate school, 4 stars there. You can see our achievement, very strong there. Progress, so there's your value added. So some things we're working on there. Gap closing, and no, this is where you do not have early literacy, of course. And then you have no graduation on that as well too. So we're looking at those 3 areas right now for our intermediate school. Okay. For the middle school, overall ranking of a 4. Similar, you're going to see achievement, progress, or value added, gap closing, no graduation or early literacy there. So very similar to what we had the previous year. Then we have the high school. So achievements, progress, gap closing. Now you'll start to see graduation. We always do well there, and that looks at 4 and 5 years. Students who graduated 4 or 5 years. Early literacy, not there. College, career, workforce, and military readiness. We're getting ready for that evaluation. You saw that we have some aspects of it that's not currently rated. One of the things we're going to have to look at with that is also on standardized testing at the high school. That'll weigh and see how many students take the ACT and SAT. With our focus on career and military, you might not see as many people taking those entrance exams. So we're looking at that this year. That's one of our study topics. Questions about the high school?
Could you explain the progress score that the distance? I'm not sure what I'm seeing. Is it 2 stars?
2 stars on progress, yes. So that's it. That's in the aggregate. So that's the value added component. Yeah, you not during the public meeting like this. Okay. But yeah, anyway, so that's the value added data. There's some work that we need to do in this area. One of the things that we do not have yet is this data will be distilled down to the classroom level. We don't have that yet. The state will release that probably could be in the next week or two, right, Jeff? Yeah, next week or two. So we want to look at what that value added data, that progress, and how we're performing. I will tell you, and I'm careful because we're looking at this in the aggregate. If you were to look at this statistically, there's more variation in that area than there are in the progress value added across the district than there is in other areas. So we need to look at that and see if there's some areas of growth. That's really it for the report card this year. One of the things I was going to tell you too, that's excuses, but we also realized that we did not, our score looks about the same, slightly less than last year in the performance. We also didn't get some credit for some of the students in their advanced work. We had to change in EMIS staff, and that was lost in the mix. More specifically, typically students wouldn't take geometry until 10th grade. We had a core group of students taking it in 9th grade. If you take it a year early, there's advanced or advanced plus, you get more credit for that. So. On college grade plus?
I think there's a question.
Yeah, I don't know, Debbie.
There was a question earlier last week whether the CCP had been credited to us. Or are we still working on whether that? Okay. Is that part of the college, career, workforce, and military readiness? Okay. So it actually did. Okay.
Well, we had the curriculum committee, we'll talk more about that later, but we did a little even deeper dive in this and more work to come. So this will be a focus for the coming year. To be honest, when we talk about it, it's about the same as last year. Kind of disappointing, to be honest, because we thought maybe we'd see a bump. We didn't. Again, there's more variation in some of the overall. You get an aggregate rating, but there's variations out there, so there's some work we see. There are some things too, I would tell you, that with implementation, new curriculum, sometimes you'll see an implementation dip. Our strongest areas, though, are in math. It is impressive to see how much progress is being made in math, but realizing that you have English language arts curriculum, science, so it's going to take some time to stabilize. And not wanting someone to make mistakes, but there's a lot of moving pieces, in the environment. So, but all headed in the right direction. Anything I can answer for the board? Any questions? If not, then what we'll do is we'll continue to work through curriculum, and this will be in our I didn't mention we changed our assessment process this year. I'm going to give it to you in a weekly report, but we changed to MAP testing, so we expect better alignment there, so we should have better predictive values too when we look at our data for the year. Debbie, anything more we need to cover? Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? I think we see where we're at. We're second in Licking County. We want to be first in everything. In everything. We're about in the top 20% of the state.
Yeah.
So we're doing well. We always want to do better. So I appreciate all the hard work and continued work as we continue to improve those scores. Moving on to board committees.
We have a few committees to report. We've changed some schedules, so there's a couple committees that haven't met yet. We'll reschedule those, but I do believe we have a report from our curriculum committee that met on October 3rd.
Yes, I'm going through my notes. So Ann, if I have notes all over the page. So Ann and I actually had a really great opportunity. We spent almost 2 hours really diving into the state report card, just understanding a little bit more about how things are weighted, you know, and how you might see something high here, but why doesn't it pull us, and how some things are weighted really heavily and others aren't. And we had really good conversations about how the better data we gather, that we are going to be able to look at better plans on, you know, looking more on a grade level or subjects of how we're improving scores and overall success. So that was really nice for us to just see a little bit more than stars and what does this mean. We talked about what has been implemented this year. So we implemented new science curriculum. So 4 through 8, that was Amplify. And then in grades 9 through 12, that was McGraw-Hill. Just anecdotally, 4 through 8, it's going really well. What we've heard is there's much better science dialogue in the classrooms, which is really great to hear. And then another thing about the science curriculum is that there was an opportunity through the ESC this summer for teachers to go and learn and practice, which we thought was really, really awesome to help them kind of dive in. For health this year at the high school, it's in person. We brought that back to in-person learning. So we're really interested in seeing how that plays out and what feedback we're getting from that. English and language arts is also going to be rolling out. So grades 6 through 12, we're reviewing potentially for adoption in April. And then grades K through 5, which will be wit and wisdom. Again, more training opportunities coming this fall for those teachers. We also said the plan for the 25-26 school year is to potentially be looking at a social studies curriculum. And then between 25 and 2027, we will be reviewing the related arts curriculum. We also talked about high school graduation requirements, which is something we'll be looking at a little bit later in the agenda, but just that we became aware of how some of our CTEC students are taking classes for graduation that didn't completely line up with how we have graduation requirements. So we will be modifying that to ensure that in the 11th and 12th grade students who are taking a credit are going to get the credit for graduation on that. Again, we spent a lot of that time looking at report card data. Also, there have been some beginning conversations at the elementary and intermediate level to look at maybe before and after school programs like we've done in the past to help support students who need a little bit of additional help. So last year, I think we were starting those late spring, and this year the potential to start them even earlier. We're looking to see if we can roll that out. And we just said any opportunity to intervene earlier for those students, we are glad to support that. So we are really happy that those conversations are already starting, already looking at what students do we need to provide a little bit of support on the side for them. I'm not going to talk about a lot of our celebrations because those are really, I don't want to steal your thunder for the end, but
No,
okay.
All right. Well, I think there's a couple on there you were going to mention, so I
That's
don't
okay,
want
go
to take
ahead.
those
They'll
away
bear
from you.
repeating later on.
I think one thing that's really exciting is that there is a Name the Crane at the intermediate school. My kids have come home with some really good ideas for naming the crane, which I think is really awesome. Just loving the potential of opportunities that that's going to create, and I love all the STEM opportunities that are going to arise out of the Name the Crane. I'm not going to say anything that's not out there yet for students and put any surprises out there, but really exciting stuff to come for that. Always excited to have Grandparents' Day coming back at the schools. As someone who my in-laws love being a part of the school district, very, very exciting. There also are potentially, we're looking at curriculum nights, which is not something we've done in the past, which I think will be really great. So more to come on that about when and how that's going to look for different buildings. But again, knowing that a curriculum night is going to be out there for parents to learn more about all of these new things we're implementing and what are the expectations and how you guys as parents can get more information. Make sure you know the apps and all the things at home that you can also be doing to help your students as well. And I think that
The Purple Star, the other schools in the district are
Yes.
going to be looking to be a Purple Star school as well.
yes, thank you. I have that somewhere in my margins.
I just have it for Veterans
Yes.
Day.
And I need to talk about that. So I think that was a long meeting, but I think I covered it all.
Anything else, Ann, for no. I have to say, we spent the better part of 2 hours going through that report card data. So a lot of people don't get an opportunity to see what the board does, but that was really an in-depth review. And I appreciate how academic the board and engaged they are at many levels. That's just one example. But that with the parent part of it, with the curriculum nights, we'll see more partnerships, and that's where we'll see more growth.
It was very helpful to go through how the reporting is and look at. And Debbie Seibel, she answered our questions. She was very patient with us and answered all those questions because there's a lot. It's not just a piece of paper that shows the progress. There's a lot that goes into that, and it was very helpful. Very helpful.
One thing that you said I wanted to underscore as well is that talking about interventions, and at the elementary school, Mrs. Wagner is looking at possibly even starting earlier this year. So I might be bringing you something as early as next month to look at. But as we have more students who are transient, we're starting to see that number come up a little bit. That's always a little more challenging. Can be anyways when students transfer to different districts. So I think anything we can do to help students try to catch up before they're trying to retroactively catch them up. So we'll try to do it in advance.
I'd like to see them catch up before summer when they just offer a 10-day.
Yeah.
And I expressed this in the meeting too. I think we all feel that.
So I think the next
rather
board
do it
meeting I might
now.
be bringing some additional tutoring support, but we'll look and see if then Mrs. Wagner's working with Mrs. Seibel on that. And then we didn't have finance, although we have budgets coming up at some point. So we did have we have insurance coming up. That one yet. We do have policy.
I know, it's me again. Hi. I will keep it very brief for policy because they're all on the agenda tonight for a first reading, and really the majority of them were very finance related. So I really appreciate that our treasurer took the time in conjunction with Derek to go through all of that in fine detail and her eye on there and make sure she felt like everything was exactly as it should be. And I probably couldn't repeat a lot of it verbatim for you. So I'm glad you were there for that.
Okay, we have other committees, but local professional development. Okay. So the local professional development committee met on September 17th. Members in attendance: Stephanie Stuckey, Laura Kurtz, Renee Britton, Annette Price, Brad Weirman, Michael Schiffman, Susan December. They looked at individual professional development plans for staff. They approved 14 of those. We have 2 that were in modification, 2 that were returned. They approved 2 with modifications, and then we have 2 more that they sent back to staff to be further modified for further consideration. Anytime a student or a teacher is leaving Johnstown or if they're coming into the school district, we have what's called a reciprocity agreement, and we try to complete information so the sending or us as the sending or us as the receiving school district make sure everything aligns. So we had exit reports they went through for staff who had exited the school district this year. There's quite a few. I don't read all the names, but I have the notes. We did have some contact hours approved for some teachers and administrators. So when you have a professional development plan, it's growth plan. It's for 5 years, and you have to go to the committee for certain approvals for some professional development. So they did that. They also received some credit for some of the work that they did for their own professional development, and I went into every detail there. But and the next meeting is October 24th. So at the next be in the November board meeting, I'll have another update of the professional development. That's it.
Good. Consent agenda.
Consent agenda. We have resolution 24-10-198. Sure. The first one we have is resignation for food service staff member. We have unpaid days for some staff members. We don't put the reasons there. We need board approval for that if they're moving into an unpaid status. We had one change in supplementals. So Reagan side, Zito, to adjust for step 2. We do have a food service staff member we hired. I will tell you just more tangent. The next board meeting, I think we'll have an adjustment to staff. 5.5, but we can have that ready quite for next meeting. Cafeteria substitute. We have that. A lot of pupil activity positions you can see that are listed. Volunteers come in next, all listed. And then we also had in that same section athletic volunteers, and that's Mike Triplett, who's been added as a JHS softball. I mentioned that. Salary degree change. There's a process we have in the school district where we work with JEA, and you have to, if you advance your education, you have to be able to submit those. Those are approved, so that's Mike Carter for that. Club sport bowling is on here. And been working with that. See the reading of that. Facility use waiver for this Johnstown Lifestyles group. Board minutes we have, and we have 3 board minutes, including our special and joint meeting with City Council, which occurred on September 26th. And the monthly finance report. I believe that's everything. That's it.
Can I get a motion? And can I get a second?
Second.
Discussion. Questions, comments on any of the consent? Only thing I had on the bowling, do we have someone identified that's heading that up? Assuming we have somebody identified that's...
Mr. Gant, do you have, are you able to share any information about the bowling? I don't put you on the spot because I know you're working on some of the details with that, but are you able to talk about any of that publicly yet?
Yeah. So at this point, we had a student approach me earlier in the year and said that he believes there's some growing interest in bowling. I explained to him the process of it not being a sanctioned team yet and let him know at this point we need to come up with a list of students interested as well as potential volunteer coaches that will get certified. In about 2 to 3 weeks, that student came back with 10 student names and 4 parents' names. So last month, I held a informational meeting with the potential players and parents to educate them on what that looks like, essentially letting them know that it would not be a school-sanctioned activity at this time in terms of the uniform costs, practices, locations, things of that sort, and it educated the parents on the requirements to be a volunteer, so the certifications that they need to go through, as well as the submission of a background FBI check. Following that, we pretty much collaborated, or I partnered, not partnered, I connected, that's probably the best word, connected them with the league assigner for bowling, to which we just got an email this week. Licky Valley is interested in doing some contests with us, understanding that we're club and they are sanctioned. So at this time, we're going to shadow the league requirements for the LCL, so that as the program grows and we get to a point of being ready to make it an official sport, it's already emulating what the league requirements are. At this time, they have not found a bowling alley they want to use yet, so we're thinking of doing all away meets or matches, where they'll go to a school in the LCL who already has a relationship with a bowling alley, and we just be away for the year.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't have any other questions. Anyone else? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Boer,
Yes.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes. Moving on to the treasurer's recommendations.
The first recommendation, Resolution 24-10-199, would be accepting a donation from, or for the Johnstown-Monroe Track and Field. This is from Johnstown Lifestyle in the amount of $250.
Can I get a motion?
I'll motion.
Discussion?
This is for the track and field, maintenance of it, or
Whatever we want.
whatever we want,
We
or is
just
it for the team itself?
instructed it to the, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we did. I don't think it was targeted. What that was is an exchange, some recognition since you approved the fee waiver. You know, they're up and coming, but they wanted to do something back to the district.
Do we still have an account that we're putting, at one time, there was a turf track an account that was set up, and I don't know if we still have that.
We do still have that account. It's in a capital projects fund of its own. We can certainly put this there. Most of the donations just go into the general fund, but since this is dedicated, well, it does say dedicated to athletics.
To athletics or to track and field?
Well, it's track and field program. So I don't know what that means, I guess. That means athletics.
We need to
But
stimulate that fund to be sort of dropped at that fund, so.
We need to add a lane right there.
Right.
We need certain things. Last year, they changed the timer in order for student athletes to be credited with their time. They don't have a specific timer set up. I don't know the details of it, but that's one.
so would be the board's desire to have this go into the capital projects for track and field?
Yeah,
The
I mean, I
track.
think that's where it should go. The philosophy here is if you're using the track, money generated or donated, you should go toward the track. If you're using the gym, it should go toward the gym because you're really using the wear and tear of that facility. So it should go back to maintaining or improving that facility.
Right.
I think as a board, I think we've made that distinction before. Whatever facility gets the use, that's where the money should go. Any money's generated. I think that's good. We still are putting dollar amount every year though into the track fund for the turf replacement.
Yes, in the turf replacement.
Okay.
Mhm. That's a little different though. I believe
It
there
is.
is a step.
I
Okay.
just want to make sure that that's a separate fund. I want to make sure, yeah, because that we don't want to get ourselves back in the position we were the last time.
I'm writing the check.
Yes. So we will continue to work on those. Okay. On to resolution B.
We
I think
didn't
we
get
have
a
to
vote.
vote on
Oh, we
it.
didn't vote on that?
No.
Oh.
Just did a
Well, let's
motion.
vote. Call the roll.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Boer,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Benton.
Yes. Well, now we can move on.
Item B is Resolution 24-10-200 to approve the fiscal 25 permanent appropriations and fiscal 25 final amended certificate of estimated resources as of September 30, and further authorize submission to the Licking County Auditor.
If I can get a motion,
So moved. I'll second.
I think we've all seen this.
Yes.
Call the roll.
Mrs. Boer,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Resolution 24-10-201 is Educational Service Center of Central Ohio Ventures Academy Service Agreement.
If I can get a motion,
I'll motion.
Second.
This is a contract to work with a student. For life details, and they're just a student who needs to exceed what we can do in this group.
any questions? Call the roll.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mrs. Boer.
Yes.
Resolution 24-10-202 is approval of gifted handbook for the 24-25 school year.
Get a motion, please.
I'll motion.
Second.
Discussion.
I had given the board update. Typically, we would do this earlier, but a couple changes. One is we're not the only district because of some changes at the state level, but also so we changed our math testing so make sure everything aligned with Henderson.
Any questions, comments? Call the roll.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Boer,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Resolution 24-10-203 is a revision to the 24-25 Johnstown High School Student Handbook to align with the CTEC graduation requirements.
Can I get a motion
I'll motion.
and a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Well, I was just going to say that this came out of the curriculum committee, and I spoke with Mrs. Seibel just before the meeting as well. And I would really like to see us work with CTEC in the future to see how they intend. I can't believe that we're the only school district that had a conflict, and we didn't find out until just now that there's an issue. I certainly don't want the seniors and juniors to be affected by this. And, I went out online and looked. It looks like the change was made in May of this year. And also, they offer 3 other subjects, but I don't think it is what we were looking for as far as civics is what we're looking for those students to have that piece when they go on, because it's our responsibility to ensure that they're getting everything they need for the future. So I'd like to see, I don't know who works with CTEC on that, because we're not members of that whole movement.
I appreciate the conversation.
We don't really have a voice over there.
I appreciate the conversation at the curriculum committee meeting, and we will follow up with them. That was a change that I don't think school districts in the area saw that, but and we certainly, as we talked to the curriculum, we didn't want to dilute the curriculum, but we understand their time commitments to CTEC, so we're going to follow up with them. Mrs. Seibel and I will see what we need to do. It doesn't change with our students, the students of our high school.
What did we find out about our CTEC students here at Johnstown?
They'll follow the regular curriculum. Yeah, I mean the regular requirements. Later on, I'll talk about it, but I also have the information disaggregated about career tech, Newark versus Johnstown High School, so we have some information there too. But it begs the question of another issue: we could have separate tracks for career tech to students. Tech programs, so depending on where you're receiving before your education, make a difference in that.
And to be clear, they are offering 3 courses
Yeah.
in place of that.
Yes.
That they're not getting. CTEC is offering, but it's not civic or government. It's global markets, economics, and psychology.
All right, any other questions, comments? Call the roll.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mrs. Boer,
Yes.
Mr. Benton.
Yes.
Resolution 24-10-204, second reading of revised policies.
Motion, please.
Make the motion.
I'll second it.
Discussion. Call the roll.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Boer.
Yes.
Resolution 24-10-205, second reading to rescind policies.
Can I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Discussion? For the public, we've seen these policies like 20 times at this point, so think we shouldn't have any questions, but once in a while we still have one that pops up.
And trust me, as a member of the policy committee, they're exciting to read these policies and
Hey.
work on them. Hey, well, right, we have fun, right, Amanda?
Sometimes.
Okay, call the roll, please.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mrs. Boer,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Resolution 24-10-206, second reading for health replacement policies.
Can I get a motion?
Make the motion.
I'll second it.
Any discussion on these? Call the roll.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mrs. Boer.
Yes.
Resolution 24-10-207 is first reading of revised policies.
And a motion, please.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Discussion? Call the roll.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mrs. Boer,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas.
Yes.
Resolution 24-10-208, first reading to rescind policies.
Motion?
Make the motion.
I'll second it.
Discussion? Call the roll.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Boer,
Yes.
Mr. Swager.
Yes.
Resolution 24-10-209, first reading of replacement policies.
Motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Discussion? Call the roll.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mr. Swager,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Boer, Mrs. Boer.
Yes.
Pardon me.
Resolution 24-10-210, first reading of bid policies.
Motion?
Moved.
I'll second it.
Discussion? First reading. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Benton,
Yes.
Mrs. Boer,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Swager.
Yes. All right, moving on. Any board comments?
Just like to remind our CTEC students, and also high school students that might be interested in the career. October 17th, which is this Thursday, CTEC's having their open house for career fair, 5:30 to 7:30. And I've attended this 2 years previously because Amanda and my daughter went to CTEC. I was surprised at all of the employers that do come there, and they talk to the students or anybody that comes. So they talk to the parents, they talk to individuals in the community that may be looking for a job, but they absolutely are looking for the students. And you have skilled trades there, Ohio Glass and Aluminum, Robertson Construction, IBEW 1105, which is your electricians, your journeymen, excuse me, if they're not electricians, they're journeymen. Manufacturing, we have Axiom Plastics, Hendrickson, Illuminate USA, Mistras, MPW Industrial, Ridge Corporation, THK Manufacturing of America. They have healthcare, obviously Johnstown Point's going to be there, Licking Memorial Hospital, Health Systems, excuse me, not hospital, PALS, and Heath, Via Quest, and Wise Medical. Public safety, they've got Delaware County EMS, if you've ever wanted to be in the emergency medical, as far as 911 center, that's what that's for, West Licking County Fire Department. They're automotive, Lindsay Honda. But the point of the matter is there's opportunities out there for our kids in Licking County. These individuals are taking their time out to meet with them, and I highly encourage it. There's also colleges that come to this event as well. I'm not sure what trades come as far as to train them for technical schools, but I know Ohio University was there, Ohio State, Newark, COTC on the state. So this is absolutely something that I talked with Dr. Wagner, highly recommend that the kids go to it, and especially our Johnstown students that attend CTEC, it'd be beneficial for them to go. So that's my plug for it. I don't think we can.
Well, I did receive an email from Mr. Shipton today. Went out to everybody to reminding the parents of that as well. So I appreciate those reminders. And I do want to make a point that Ms. Thomas made when I spoke to her. There, some of the misperception. A lot of kids at CTEC go on to college. There's a lot of those classes. You're going on to nursing, and you're going on to a lot of the programs there. So CTEC, while it is trades, it's also a lot of those careers that they do have to have college afterwards. So I do, and that's why colleges are going there, and you need to go. So there's just a little bit. If your kids don't go out there, sometimes you don't think of it that way. But there's several career paths through CTEC as well. So it's important to go to these types of job fairs because that's really what these are. This is looking for careers, looking for avenues for your students to pick a career or find out what they don't like. I mean, it's just as much important to find out what you don't want to do in life as it is to find out what you want to do. So a lot of these job fairs are capable of helping your kids see that. So
Absolutely.
strongly encourage them.
Strongly encourage.
Any other board comments? All right.
Just a couple things. I wanted to call the board's attention to Senate Bill 29. I'm going to hear more about it. It's the Education Record and Student Privacy Bill. I think it was done with some good intentions because they wanted, the Ohio legislature wanted to control how our student data is being used and potentially could be used in other ways that were not just educational. So that part of it I understand. Admittedly, people I'm talking to, there's been an overreach, and the concern is with current law the way it is, and I don't think there'll be any immediate fix to it, is that there's three aspects that are looked at through this law, and I want to know, we're tasked as a public school to see if we're tracking students. We don't track, if we give them a device. The only time that ever occurs is if a device is lost, we know where it is. That's not as much of a concern. There's also one about whether we're recording students and all. We don't really do that. But this last one is the one that's the overreach, and it says student interactions with a school-issued device, including but not limited to keystrokes, web browsing activity. What that generally means, as we work through this, is that if there's a filtering process, which is what we have a software called Lightspeed, so that is we use that for general filtering. If there's no real human interaction, it's just filtering. That's not a concern. But we also have Lightspeed for the classroom, and with that, teachers can look and see. They look at it's the wireless access point. They can look and see what students are doing. Sometimes we have a few screens up, not always the one that's supposed to be. And we can control that in the environment. I was supposed to do that. That would, under this new law, which would become effective October 24th, require us to notify parents every time that we interact with student data. So it's onerous. It seems to be an overreach. A lot of schools are trying to figure out what to do to comply with this October 24th deadline. In lobbying discussions, it looks like there will be a legislative amendment coming, but we're coming into lame duck here. It's a busy time of campaigning, and then won't be the lame duck, so it might be until the first year. So we're trying to figure out how to comply with it. The concern is, let's say, for example, let's say there's a teacher in a classroom as of the 24th of October and after, and they really shouldn't be looking at what a student should be able to near and see what browsing activity they have or what site they're on. If that happens, we have 72 hours to notify parents. The concern with part of that is it's going to seem like static because parents could get a significant number of communiques per day to the point where I don't think it's really valuable. Ostensibly, I mean, think about like even in middle school, you could have 6 different teachers doing that, which is atypical. People aren't in there just watching students related to the teaching and learning process. There's also filtering that goes on both the behind the scenes as well as the human interaction, especially with the teachers. If there's anything that the students are involved with that it's been a red flag for us. So trying to navigate all that, don't have a lot of answers, but it's coming down to the wire, and just want you to hear about it. If you have any questions.
I appreciate that. So, just for clarification for me, so you have a student, maybe you think they're not paying attention, they're not doing it, so you hear their screen, and they're actually on the page or whatever they're supposed to be. You still have to notify the parent that you actually mirrored. So, as a parent, I could be getting an email saying my child was actually on the program, and I could repeatedly get that throughout the day if people are checking. Yeah, that seems silly. Okay.
I think some.
It's one thing if you're doing something and you weren't going to notify the parent, like, hey, the kid's not paying attention.
But it is a great tool for
Absolutely.
teachers to be able to make. Listen, I've had to use it. I'm like, please use it for my children. Make sure they're on task. Totally. But you're right. That would become very cumbersome for teachers to have to.
Well, they do this naturally. They can even shut things off, and they'll have a screen in their room, and they can see which. I mean, it's like thumbnail size. You really are typically looking. You can pull that up.
So is this going to be something manual that the teacher then has to write down that they've done this and then they send an email, or is it generated report?
Nobody really.
That's the part.
Nobody really knows that. So what? There's all kinds of questions. Can you send out just like an example?
Right.
Notice that doesn't suffice because there's what's called trigger activities or trigger actions, and that example you gave would be a trigger. Anytime there's a human interaction with the data. So some of the software companies might be. Looks like Debbie Seibel was working on this today with our provider for Lightspeed, and they may have a resolution, but it's going to still be generated from them. So,
And that's the timeline that they have to notify the parents.
72 hours.
I paid attention.
Yeah.
No,
that's
that's
good.
good. Mind again.
That's good. 72 hours.
I feel like I'd be getting an email every day.
I would be
Well,
getting an
From
email.
multiple teachers.
sometimes
I would be
multiple
getting an
times a day.
email
Yeah.
multiple teachers.
Multiple
for
teachers.
any one of my 3 kids.
Yeah.
I can imagine if you had
It's
3
one
or
of those
4
things
kids,
that-
and not just times 1, but you would have multiples.
All day.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of the things that kind of slipped under through the summer.
We don't need to add more to our teachers' plate. We don't have to do this.
No. I see it like.
Just want to let the board know that we have a couple overnight field trip requests, baseball and softball requesting for this spring. So we'll run that through our normal process. The thing that we've done from a policy procedure standpoint, since there's changes, is we can now have the request and the scaffold very early on, so we can start working with the teams and look at the board information. One of the things that we changed is I just honestly didn't think it was fair is things were nearly fully baked and then brought to the board after fundraising, and it puts you in a bad situation because you don't have the meaningful input. You're basically the gatekeeper in the end. You don't have any involvement in the process. So we're going to work on both of those and keep the board updated. Might get a subcommittee or 2 to come together. So anytime you're taking students off site, especially out of state, there's a lot of protection. So we'll work on that and keep you updated.
I also want to make sure on that we keep expectations realistic. I know when we discussed this before as a board, we talked about allowing a trip like every 3 or 4 years, once in your high school career, but not regularly, not every year, because it does come financially burdensome for the parents as well to make those trips. So I just want to make sure if and when we would approve something, they understand it's not going to be an annual trip out of state.
Is the softball one, is that?
What was Tennessee? And is that
Florida.
Florida?
Tennessee one, they should look at to make sure it would be okay for time.
Yes.
Because I think it's in the mountains. I think, but
Yeah.
it's been a while. I think it's the same place they went before. Did you see that? No.
But watch for updates,
Okay.
because that'll be something that, again, we're going to have the board as meaningful partners in this, bring it to you fully baked. Okay. Just to underscore, it said Grandparents' Day, October 17th, so we're certainly looking forward to that. Grandparents' Day actually is in September, so we're slowly getting that date closer where we need to. But, post-COVID, we're still cleaning up.
September.
Yeah, we're getting there. So, but I'll tell you, a lot of effort the staff at both the elementary and community, and it's a great program. But we're doing a lot of work to get that ready, and like us and teachers as well. So we'll be ready for that, and I'll send an invite out to the board. Very busy schedule, but I'm in for a little bit of this. Appreciate it. Veterans activities underscore this as well, November 11th. So I'll send you an invite on that too if you have any time in your day. As Mrs. Thomas said also, and about that we're trying to get a Purple Star as well for the other three schools. Now we have the elementary. Mrs. Wagner is helping as the advisor for the other three buildings. So
That's great.
so we can do, yeah, she's got the template down. She did that with Mr. McDonald last year primarily. I only approved for it.
Are we on the veterans there? We did a little more robust activities last year. I'll tell you a little. Are we planning on that again?
Okay.
Has someone contacted the American Legion?
I don't know where that is.
If we could, they'll get more veterans to come. They really enjoyed last year's events, and they would like to get more people. If we're going to have that level again this year, they'd like to have more of their veterans attend. So if that's the intention, if we could reach out. Okay.
One of the things that's good after every board meeting, we do an agenda review meeting that we just go through and so we're not just head nodding, we're taking notes and then follow up. Also, Amanda talked about details in the crane project. So we have that coming. That will be actually on October 25th. Send the board an update or right on that. We'll expect that we'll have a presentation that starts off at the PAC. And there's some STEAM activities that will be that day, and I think they'll extend into Monday, with what I saw the latest. Yeah. So they'll have, it's going to bring some of their staff. So there's a teaching and learning tie-in with that. So I'm excited. It's been a nice partnership. I actually got a request too from the chamber, Johnstown Chamber, that they want to recognize this as well too. And maybe we have a home football game night. So see if that, I get Mark Werman about that, but this is primarily the GIS that's involved with this. If you get an opportunity to see the crane is actually out there. It's the big yellow one, and it's really large. You can see. What's interesting about it is it's more than just naming the crane one time. This is the permanent. That crane that's out there is the first time, and it will get a name. Norm is working on vetting that process with the 4th and 5th graders, and then we're supposed to submit 2 or 3 names to Intel and make the final selection on that, and that'll be unveiled on the PAC. But what's interesting about it is whatever name that's given, that will live the life of that. Yeah, and it'll say Johnstown underneath. Yeah. So it's really kind of a nice honor. There's a couple other cranes that we've actually looked at already. There's Big Carl, I think that's the one out in the UK. Right? Yeah, and there's Sky Reacher that's out west, I think somewhere in Colorado.
What's the name coming in close here? Do we know yet?
Don't tell. Don't.
No, we don't know.
We don't know yet. No. Everybody wants to know. There's got to be a big reveal.
I submitted mine very quickly.
Well, somebody else is submitting theirs too. So
I submitted mine tonight.
Somebody else was submitting.
I don't think
theirs
mine's going to
too.
win either.
Yeah. No.
No naming.
Should be a naughty list or something. That's what it should be. Okay, so that's named the crane. At one of the last board meetings, we were talking, and we talked about curriculum committee. We were talking about student enrollment and CTEC, and we were looking at our CTEC enrollment. How come we've gone down to 38 students? So we have an interesting challenge. The CTEC programs we're running at the high school now are included in our high school student population. So there's a demarcation about what location you're in. But I can tell you our numbers are actually up. So we had 38 who are in Newark campus. We have 29 students of our students who are in Johnstown at the high school.
Oh,
So our numbers, this is our highest number ever of CTEC students. Now, we'll refine the database moving forward, but what you'll see is those 29 will always be embedded in high school because they're counting the attendance. But there'll be an asterisk. But I think that's exciting when you look at how many students.
There's a lot of kids that the difference are the kids that would have not been able to go because there weren't enough seats.
Yeah.
So the fact that, some of our students here actually get to take the courses that they want to take without being limited is tremendous.
We've always had a good partnership with CTAC, and that it was. I said, Mrs. Thomas, we were going back and forth on email about something, but the whole multi-skilled technician was spawned from that event that you're talking about on the 17th. That was a year ago. We were standing there looking at the multi-craft, and we said, "Wow, this is an adult ed program. It's too bad they don't have one for a K-12 or a high school program." And that conversation, those questions led to conversations, and then spawned. And then the other aspect was the electrical trades program. I remember I was talking to the superintendent of CTEC, and she said, "Good news, we have 11, at that time, 11 rising juniors from Johnstown who are interested in electrical trades." I said, "Okay, what's the bad news?" And she said, "We can't take them all." And I said, "How many can you take?" And she said, 5 or 6. I said, "Okay." So we talked, and I said, "Okay, crazy idea, but what if that let us for support curriculum committee start there?" So we now have all 11 of those students at our high school, and then we have 2 other students, I think, one from Northridge and one from Licking Heights, actually, in our program as well, too, in partnership. That also, it's not only what we're doing for our 11 students, those other 2, but it also frees up space at the newer campus, so that provided 5 or 6 spaces there, too. So it's a nice story.
Have we had a tour for the rest of the board members to go through? I was able to go through, we're still getting it, was it first week, maybe of school, but I think it
That
would be
actually
nice
is
for
a
all
really
the
good
school
idea. Maybe
board members to
sometime
see it.
when we have one of these events, maybe they're on campus here for Grandparents' Day or Name the Parade or something, we'll do a field trip because they've got that built out now. And kudos, I wasn't here for this, but kudos to the board and to the construction team for the foresight because we were able to take that wall out and in essence, there's a large header.
Yeah.
We can take that out, and we have that full run right now. So they have commercial, basically, electrical stations on one side, residential on the other.
Maybe on November 11th at the high school, the day that you have the veterans night, I bet they would like to see that.
Yeah.
They would be very interested in that, especially the electrician portion.
Yeah. But remind me the next time you're in the district, we'll take a run through there because it really is impressive. The multi-skilled technician program is still coming. It's a little easier with the electrical trade schools with the curriculum, for that. But since we're building a multi-skilled from the ground, but it's still impressive to see that too. Yeah, we should do that. That's a good idea. Wanted to remind the board the Ohio School Board Association convention is November 10th to the 12th. I think I sent you the brochure on that. If there's anything of interest, let me know. We'll probably try to attend a couple events there. One is I wanted to share, and it's a little early, but we celebrate some student athletes tonight. We're going to have more to talk about with cross country. Their season isn't finished yet, but some accolades right now for Cameron Bebrick and Allison. So watch for that, and we actually put some information on our social media pages. Thanks to our coaches, Mr. Geyer and Shiv Reiner. For their efforts in the PAP program. So as far as I think that's it. Oh, one more thing. We had our joint meeting with City Council on September the 26th. I always pay attention to these meetings. I was texting a little bit because we hosted another meeting. I wanted to make sure to get out. We would only 24 hours before we do that. There's a request for us to attend another joint meeting with City Council tomorrow night. It should be about 7 o'clock. They have a City Council meeting starts about 6:30, and then they're going to go to executive session, and they would like us to join maybe some others as well too as we continue the larger planning that we've been working on. So I'll send you an invite on that. It'll be tomorrow night if you can make it at 7 p.m. I think that's it. Let's get questions. Questions? Excellent. Moving on. Is it resolution for executive? Yep, executive session. I'll read that. So we're going to go into executive session for 3 reasons. I'll read these. They're kind of long, but the first one is consideration of the purchase of property for public purposes, or sale or other disposition. disposition of unneeded, obsolete, unfit for use property at competitive bidding if premature disclosure of information would give an unfair competitive or bargaining advantage to a personal private interest is adverse to the general public interest. Another reason for executive session is discussion with the board's legal counsel of disputes involving the board that are of subject for pending or imminent court action. And then the last reason is with health personnel, but it's consideration of the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official.
I can get a motion
I'll motion.
and a second. Any discussion? No action?
No, I don't think the board will be asked to.
No action after executive session is expected. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Boer?
Yes.
Mr. Swager?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Benton?